I never thought a cleaning lady could make my mute child whisper, while I fought back tears. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My heart raced as I stared at the door, dread pooling in my stomach. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Not today. The sun shone brightly, mocking my turmoil. Lila, my little girl, sat on the floor, clutching her favorite stuffed bunny. Her torn pajama sleeve hung the way her heart felt ragged and exposed. I could see the hope flickering in her eyes when I whispered promises that day. I often caught myself wishing for the sound of her sweet voice, the one that never came. Silence wrapped around our home like a thick fog, points of light flickering in my chest, desperate for release. It was just a week ago when an ad in the local paper caught my eye. Magical cleaning services, we sweep more than just dust. I laughed, packing my endless struggles into that ceramic frog-shaped piggy bank. Could this cleaning lady truly perform miracles? What a bizarre thought. But the mess of my life demanded action. Maybe Lila needed something more than my love and the quiet hope I offered. Maybe we both did. When Clara arrived, she seemed to float through the door. A soft presence with a curious smile and eyes that sparkled with hidden secrets. Her hands moved in steady strokes as she cleaned. I watched her rhythmic motions, entranced. The smell of lemon wafted through the air, mingling with the remnants of my frustration. It made me ache in a way I couldn't explain, but it wasn't the gleaming floors or dust-free shelves that caught my attention. It was the way Clara knelt beside Lila. She whispered something, and my heart stopped. I held my breath, heart hammering against my ribs, fingers trembling. I could feel the weight of the silence pressing me down. Lila gazed up, her eyes wide with wonder. And then it happened. She whispered back, a soft, sweet sound that echoed through the air, lifting my spirit. My mouth went dry. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. How could this be? I could hardly believe what I heard. My baby hadn't spoken in years, yet there it was, a mere flicker of a voice glowing through the dark. It was both beautiful and terrifying. What magic did this woman possess? What had just shifted in our world? Clara smiled, a knowing look over her shoulder. Sometimes, it just takes someone special to break the silence. I leaned against the wall, feeling dizzy, unsteady. My mind raced with questions. Could this woman truly reach Lila in a way I never could? What other secrets did she hold? I needed to know more. But just then, Clara stood up, brushed her hands on her black apron, and turned her attention back to cleaning like nothing had just happened. And like a magician disappearing into the crowd. She was a puzzle, wrapped in mystery. In that moment, I was left on the edge of a cliff, teetering on the unknown. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Each day, Clara returned, sweeping through our lives with her incredible energy, as if she were part of the air in our house. I watched Lila slowly transform from a shadow of her former self into someone who still felt the weight of quiet but perhaps wasn't entirely afraid of it anymore. Each day, Clara engaged Lila in whispered conversations that made my heart swell, the ache of my longing shifting into something else, something filled with cautious joy. One afternoon, despite the growth I had witnessed, the world felt heavy again. Shadows gathered in the corners of our living room, and Lila, sensing my despair, chose to curl up on the couch, losing herself in the pages of her picture book. I could hear her deceptively gentle fingernails turning each page, but inside, I felt an ever-growing doubt gnawing at me. What if Clara was just a fleeting moment, an ephemeral spark in our darkness? I found myself spiraling into the depth of my fears, weighing her presence against my own inadequacies. When Clara came in, her hair catching the golden rays of evening light, I couldn't suppress the questions any longer. "What exactly do you do?" I blurted out, my voice breaking the rhythm of the moment. She paused, her smile fading as if I had struck a chord she hadn't wanted to touch. "That I clean," she replied softly, almost too simply. But there was something more beneath her words, an undertone that suggested a deeper purpose. Cleaning space means creating an atmosphere where potential can flourish. The way she looked at me was earnest, and it pulled on my heart as if we were bound by a secret that only the two of us could unravel. "Are you a magic cleaner?" Lila's voice popped through the tension, small and bright, a ray of sunshine breaking through the clouds. Both Clara and I turned toward her, shock mingling with delight, Clara's face suffused with warmth. "I think we all have a little magic in us, if we let it out," she said, her eyes alight with sincerity, and Lila smiled back. A sweet recognition passed between them. That night, as I sat at the kitchen table, the remnants of dinner still strewn about, I couldn't absorb the knots forming in my mind. I was exhausted, the heartbeat of the day thrumming in my temples. Lila lay in her room, the soft murmur of her repeated whispers drifting through the air like a soft lullaby. But beneath that serenity, a storm brewed inside me. Clara had provoked something in Lila that I had long thought buried. Each exchange between the two felt like layers unfurling, yet it also ignited a foreboding fear in me. What if every moment Clara spent with Lila drew them closer, while I was left behind? I couldn't bear the thought of being obsolete in my own daughter's world. The next morning, as the dawn light spilled through the window, I made up my mind. It was time to confront Clara. What was her true intention? Was she here to help us heal, or was she just another fleeting spark destined to flicker out? But when Clara arrived, wearing her usual joyful expression, I felt paralyzed. Little Lila rushed to her and wrapped her tiny arms around her waist. In that moment, a rush of anger transformed into a hollow ache. Clara knelt to return the embrace, her eyes sparkling with a joy I craved. Again, she was the magic that soothed our pain, and yet, all I could see was the distance growing between Lila and me. That I took a deep breath, heart pounding, ready to shatter the silence that I had let sustain itself for too long. But before I could speak, Clara turned toward me, her expression solemn. "There is something you need to know," she said, the gravity of her tone catching me off guard. "What is it?" I whispered, suddenly desperate for answers. Clara hesitated, looking back at Lila, who was completely unaware of the tension swirling around us. "Some things are not meant to be shared lightly." She drew closer, her voice low. "But I believe you deserve to know the truth." Just then, the doorbell rang, a sharp sound that shattered the intensity in the air. I glanced at Clara, my anger and confusion washing over me. What truth? What revelation was about to alter everything? Lila detached from Clara, her curiosity piqued, but my heart raced with dread. Clara's eyes narrowed, fear flashing across her face as she glanced toward the door. "Please wait," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper, "let me handle this." And just like that, the moment shifted, leaving me on the brink of discovering something profound while fearful of what might be lurking in the shadows. And with that, the door swung open, ushering in a character I never anticipated, a twist that would change the narrative of our lives forever. The door creaked open, and my breath caught in my throat. Standing on the threshold was a tall figure partially cloaked in shadows, their face obscured by a hood. Instinctively, I moved closer to Lila, who stood transfixed, eyes wide with curiosity. Clara's composure shifted, her previous warmth replaced with an unreadable tension that threw me off balance. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, my voice surprisingly steady, though every fiber of my being screamed at me to retreat. The stranger took a step forward, revealing a weathered face lined with stories and a presence that demanded attention. "That I am here for Clara," came the response, deep and gravelly, shaking me to my core. The uncertainty in the air thickened, and I felt as if the ground beneath us was about to give way. Clara's eyes widened in recognition, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something flicker between them: fear, betrayal. Suddenly, Lila broke the silence, stepping toward the stranger, her small hand reaching out in innocent curiosity. "Are you a friend of Clara?" she asked, her voice a sweet chime against the mounting tension. the stranger's gaze softened as he looked at my daughter, causing me to wonder if behind that harsh exterior was something more. In a manner of speaking, he replied, kneeling slightly to meet Lilith's bright eyes. "I'm someone who knew her before she found her way to you." The words hung in the air like forgotten memories on the tip of the tongue, teasing at the edges of my understanding. Clara's reaction was instantaneous. She stepped forward, almost protective, eyes darting between Lila and the stranger. "This isn't the time," she insisted, her voice strained, but the stranger held his ground. "They deserve to know. Time is shrinking, Clara. This could unravel everything you've built here." I glanced at Lila, her gaze bouncing between the two, absorbing their fear and urgency like a sponge. With every revelation, I felt the chasm between myself and my daughter deepen, stretching the threads of our connection thin. "What is happening?" I said, my voice steady, but beneath it roiled a tempest of emotion. The stranger straightened, his expression somber. "I came because of the past Clara has tried to hide. There are pieces of her story that intertwine with yours and Lilith's in ways that you can't begin to understand." Clara stepped closer to him, her voice a fierce whisper, "You're not supposed to be here. Leave it in the past where it belongs." At this, I felt a surge of anger. Why is it always hidden? Why can't I just be part of whatever this is? I pointed angrily at the stranger, but it was Clara's eyes that held my focus, searching for reassurance, but finding only the tumult of my emotions. For a moment, Clara hesitated, casting a glance down the hallway toward where Lila stood watching, her innocent curiosity transforming into apprehensive understanding. "Because it involves risk," Clara finally admitted, her voice trembling. "There are things about her silence, about the accident, that are linked back to my past truth buried in regret." That I shifted my gaze between them, questions boiling beneath the surface. "What accident? What are you talking about?" The stranger sighed, his disappointment palpable. "You've seen the recovery in Lila, but have you felt the scars that remain? The world is not purely what you perceive it to be. There are darker elements, and Clara has become the light in the shadows." Just then, Lila, oblivious to the gravity of the conversation, reached for Clara's hand and squeezed it tightly. "I like your magic, Clara," she said, her voice bright in the darkness that enveloped us. "Can we still play?" But the invitation for play felt like a tender moment amidst a brewing storm, and I could see the impact in Clara's eyes, a storm of emotions reflected as she bent down to embrace Lila. "Of course, sweet girl, but we need to talk first. There are things you can't quite understand." As Clara turned back toward the stranger, something wild flickered in her eyes, something between strength and vulnerability. "But talking means revealing, and revealing means risking losing. What we've built here. Lila has fought so hard to find her voice, I can't let fear rob that from her." The door stood wide open behind our visitor, and the outside world was a chaotic blur, a horizon filled with uncertainty and danger. My heart raced, torn between wanting to protect Lila from the truth and the debilitating sense that ignoring it might only deepen our wounds, and just then, as if sensing the emotional charge, Lila turned to me, her wide eyes filled with innocence yet tinged with an understanding that both terrified and amazed me. "Daddy, can I tell you my secret?" Before I could respond, the stranger interjected, his voice firm. "Let her, Clara. This might be the moment we need." I felt the weight of his statement crash around me, and all thought of the world outside faded as I realized that the truth might be close enough to touch if only I dared to lean into the unraveling. As Clara nodded, a tremor of joy and dread coursed through me. What secret could Lila possibly hold, and would it bridge the expanding distance between user terras further apart? "Okay," I said gently, preparing myself for what was to come. Because right then, with all of us standing on the precipice of revelation, something within me knew we were no longer just cleaning up the mess, we were about to unveil the darkness cloaked in our hearts. The silence that enveloped us felt almost like a living thing, wrapping around us, heavy and laden with expectation. I knelt down, my heart hammering against my chest as I looked into Lila's eyes, searching for reassurance in her innocence. "What's your secret, sweet girl?" I asked, my voice a gentle coax, steadying both of us amid the storm brewing just beyond our emotional horizon. Lila hesitated for a moment, her brow furrowing as if weighing her words carefully. I saw something," she began, her tiny voice barely more than a whisper, but I leaned in, urging her on with my gaze. "What did you see?" The question felt dangerous, a key that could unlock doors better left shut. Her gaze darted toward Clara, who stood just behind her, tense and clutching at her forearm, fear written across her features. "A man," Lila said slowly, each word measured as if she were piecing together the fragments of a puzzle. "He was looking for you, Daddy. He told Clara she should be scared and that we have to run. That moment, Clara's face paled, and the stranger took a step forward, his eyes locking onto Lilith's. "What do you mean, Lila?" "What man?" I felt the pit of my stomach drop, dread unfurling within me like dark smoke. How was it that my daughter had seen something I hadn't? "Is this true, Clara?" I asked, my voice rising slightly, though the silence that lingered felt like a fragile thread barely holding our world together. I don't know," she admitted, her voice shaky, cracking under the weight of the unspoken truth. "There are people from my past, people who don't want to be found. I thought I had hidden us well, but if she paused, her breathing hitching, and I could see her fighting an internal battle. But if what? My voice came out stronger than I felt. If Lila saw him, then that means he's closer than I thought. It means the stories I buried are rising, and they might bring us down." The tension twisted painfully, and I watched the resolve in Clara's eyes harden, masking her fear. "Can you tell me about the man she saw?" I implored, desperate to grasp any thread of understanding, to pierce through the shadows that were slowly enveloping us. "What's going on?" But before Clara could respond, an unexpected softness seeped into the room as Lila reached up to place her small hand on Clara's cheek. "Maybe we should all just listen. Maybe he can help us." It was such pure kindness that it almost broke me. My daughter, so brave, willing to extend her trust amidst chaos. "Lila, this isn't just about listening," Clara said sadly, brushing her daughter's hand away gently. "It's about facing the truth, even when the truth is dangerous." With every moment that passed, my heart wrestled with the truth being unveiled. What if Clara's past could endanger not just her but Lila too? The fear that tightened around my chest felt suffocating. I turned to the stranger, whose presence still loomed heavily in the corner, an unseen barrier that separated us from clarity. "You know something," I accused, frustration bubbling. "What do you know about this man?" He hesitated, his expression somber as he took a moment, measuring the words he was about to share. He was a name I never wanted attached to Clara's past, but there are ghosts that refuse to die quietly. He was a part of the tragedy that took her voice, and the accident it's wrapped up in more than just loss. That I could feel Clara's eyes burning into me, and the desperation in them struck another chord of fear within me. "What does that mean for us?" I demanded, anger mingling with worry. The stranger stepped closer, his demeanor altering slightly, transforming into something almost reminiscent of compassion, yet it was laced with concern. "It means you must prepare yourselves. He is coming, and you must decide how to protect your daughter. The world you thought you had a handle on is about to twist into something else." In the midst of the emotional tidal wave, Lila tugged at my sleeve, her voice soft and sweet. "Daddy, what if we don't have to be scared? What if we just keep being brave?" The words hit me like a gentle rain after a drought, unexpected yet healing in their truth. "We have to be brave, sweetheart," I whispered, squeezing her hand, wanting to shield her from this reality yet so aware of how much strength this little girl had already shown. But another thought intruded upon my heart, a realization that settled heavy upon my chest. What if bravery means facing the man? I asked, the question a tremor in the air. Clara's gaze turned icy, and the stranger glanced towards the door, his expression unreadable. Bravery also means confronting the consequences of our past actions. Only then will you truly understand the darkness that surrounds you. My heart raced, uncertainty gnawing at the edges. All of this felt like a whirlwind, and though hope flickered at the edges, it felt distant, swallowed in the shadows that seemed to mount as the conversation deepened. Just then, I heard a faint noise from outside, a rustling, the unsettling echo of footsteps approaching. The door that had once felt like a barrier between us and the outside world now seemed like an invitation to inevitable confrontation. "Stay close," I warned, feeling a protective instinct surge. This was the moment when choices would define us, and the weight of our truths hung by a thread just beyond the threshold that I turned to face Clara, her eyes dark pools of fear and resolve. "We need to prepare ourselves for whatever comes next," I said, determination sharpening my voice. As I took a step towards the door, everything I thought I knew about my family and the paths we walked began to fracture under the weight of looming uncertainty. And with that single step, I knew our journey into the unknown had just begun. The footsteps grew nearer, and with them, shadows flickered, ready to engulf us once more. My heart raced at the thought of what awaited on the other side. There was no turning back now. The footsteps stopped just outside the door, an unsettling silence enveloping the room like a thick fog. My heart was a drum in my chest, pounding with a mixture of fear and determination as I stood frozen, an invisible line drawn between us and whatever waited just beyond. I could feel Clara's breath hitch beside me, the anxiety radiating from her like heat from a fire. Then, unexpectedly, the door creaked open, revealing not the ominous figure of a man but a young woman, her features delicate with a hint of resilience. A simple mop in one hand, she looked entirely out of place in the gravity of the moment we found ourselves in. "That I am sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her wide eyes darting around the room before landing on Lila. "I came to clean, but I can leave if you prefer." "Stay," Clara said, her voice a threat of command despite the quake of vulnerability that underscored it. "We might need help." The cleaning lady stepped tentatively inside, her gaze settling on Lila, who stood, still holding onto my sleeve like a life raft in a stormy sea. "Hi, sweet girl," she said softly, crouching to meet Lila at her level. "I'm Anna. What's your name?" With that simple question, she offered a flicker of warmth, a brief moment that felt like sunlight cutting through darkness. "Lila," my daughter replied, her voice barely audible yet laced with the tenderness that only a child can muster. There was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there a moment before, as if Anna's presence had breathed fresh air into her spirit. "Lila," Anna repeated, smiling gently. "That's a beautiful name. Can I help you with something? Maybe some organizing or tidying up? I can make it nice for you." It struck me how much this small act of kindness could stir a flicker of hope in a world grown dark and perplexing. "It's okay, Lila. It's just a cleaning lady," I murmured, but I marveled at how easily this woman, this stranger, had engaged my daughter in conversation. As Anna began to move about the room, her demeanor relaxed the tension, coloring the air slightly with an innocence that felt almost fragile. Her humming a soft, melancholic tune seeped into our shared space, weaving its way into the chaotic emotions swirling within me. It was as if the song whispered of resilience, a promise of brighter days even amid our fear. "Clara," observed Anna quietly, skepticism lacing her features, but even she seemed caught in the gentle trance of the moment. "What if he comes?" Clara asked, a note of concern breaking through the reverie. "What if the man Lila saw is already here, a man?" Anna paused, looking suddenly serious, her charming smile faltering. "What man?" But my focus was elsewhere. I turned to Lila, who was now captivated by Anna's presence, her bright eyes reflecting a flickering light of possibility. And it struck me then, like a harrowing truth, Lila had just begun to speak again. The last thing we needed was her heart to learn fear when this stranger could be the bridge to her finding her voice. "Lila, can you tell Anna about the man?" I asked, the words feeling like stepping into the ocean, uncertain and daunting. My daughter's face clouded over as she sought my gaze, apprehensive once more. "I don't want to scare her." "Or you." "It's okay," Anna said, kneeling down and drawing closer to Lila. "I'm not scared of anything. Just things that are unknown." It was a simple invitation, the thread of understanding connecting them, and I watched in awe as Lila shifted her stance, her small hand reaching tentatively toward Anna's. He said I should be scared." Anna's eyes softened, understanding flickering in their depths. "We're all scared sometimes, Lila. But sometimes, we're actually stronger than fear. And you, my dear, are so brave." Just then, Clara's phone buzzed sharply against the silence, jolting me from the moment. Clara's face drained of color as she glanced at the screen, her eyes widening. She stepped aside, her voice barely a whisper as she spoke. "It's a text." "It's him." The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, a chill creeping down my spine as dread solidified in my gut. I turned back to Lila, who looked small and vulnerable, the light in her eyes now plagued by a budding darkness. "Daddy," she whispered, reaching out for me, her small fingers trembling. "What does it mean?" The questions hung heavy in the air, each one a thread linking us to the storm approaching. I could see it reflected in Clara's face, the two of us, parents carrying the burden of a safety we feared we couldn't provide. And Anna, despite being an unexpected ally, now stood tethered to whatever chaos was unfurling. "That I don't know," I admitted, enveloping Lila in my arms, her fragile body shaking against mine as gravity pulled us into the storm. "But we'll face it together, whatever it is." But just as I spoke the words, light flickered just beyond the window. A shadow moved, creeping along the edge. The sudden realization that something was indeed watching us sent terror spiraling through my heart. And as I clutched Lila tighter, I saw Clara's face twist with raw fear as she read the message. Her lips parted slightly, and the breath caught in her throat as she turned to Meher, eyes widening in horror. "Jared, it's not just him." Clara's voice trailed off as a perfect stillness settled over the room, the weight of the truth sinking deeper as an unbearable silence fell between us. There was something else out there, something I had not contemplated until that moment. And as the shadows thickened, I knew with dread that we had stepped beyond the threshold of safety and into a reality that could rend us apart forever. As the tension thickened in the room, I felt the pulse of my heart quicken, the fear caging each breath I tried to take. Clara's eyes were fierce with unspoken words, her resolve wavering against the knowledge that the threat was greater than we'd previously imagined. It was a feeling none of us were prepared for, but it loomed larger with every passing moment, tightening its grip around our minds. "Jared, there's someone else," Clara repeated, her voice shaking as she continued to stare at the screen. "Someone he's sent after us." The words hung in the air, heavy and charged with the implication that things were about to spiral far beyond our control. Lila, sensing the tremors of fear around her, pressed closer to me, her small frame trembling. The innocence of childhood clashed fiercely with the harsh reality of the situation, and I could see both her longing for safety and her confusion over the chaos enlightening her fragile world. "Who?" I managed to croak out, feeling like the air I breathed might burst into shards of glass that could pierce through our fragile sense of security. "Someone I know," Clara finally said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Someone from my past. Someone dangerous." Her facades began to crack as she sank into the reality of her own fears and vulnerabilities. It wasn't just my daughter at risk, it was Clara's unsettling revelation that splintered the pieces of my heart that were already struggling to hold together. "Can you get rid of them?" I asked, the words feeling inadequate in the face of our growing peril. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "They won't stop until they find us." Anna, unaware of the depth of our turmoil, brushed her mop against Lila's cheek, a soft gesture filled with the kind of tenderness that seemed to fill the shards of the room with warmth. "Sweet girl," she said gently, "do you have a happy thought? Something that makes you smile?" Uncertain, Lila hesitated, but the softness in Anna's voice wrapped around her, a fragile cocoon that mitigated the chaos outside. "Maybe," she began, her voice still small but gaining strength. "The flowers. In the yard. They were so pretty that a freshness bloomed in the air." As Anna's eyes lit up with such delight that I felt my heart swell a fraction. "Yes. I love flowers." "What colors were they?" "Pink and yellow," Lila whispered, a small smile battling to emerge amidst the anxiety swirling around her. As Lila became momentarily lost in her thoughts of flowers, I couldn't help but cling to the hope that perhaps Anna's kindness might ease our burdens. This small, shared moment was a reminder of the innocence that could still breathe in spite of the storm, but the moment was fleeting. Clara's voice turned grave. "Jared, we need to get out of here. Now." I looked to Anna, hesitant to drag her into our chaotic lives. "You need to stay away from us. It's not safe. Please." She opened her mouth to protest, but Clara's determined gaze cut through her response. No one is safe as long as we are here. We can't risk bringing anyone else into this. Just as I felt the dread clutch at my heart, something hard slammed against the door, the wooden frame buckling under the weight of whatever threat lay outside. The sound punctured through the air like a bullet. Lila whimpered against me, her body shaking heavily as she clutched my shirt, and I cursed the world for forcing her back behind the walls of silence. Get to the back. I barked, my protective instincts screaming louder than I could control. Now. Clara snatched Lila's hand, pulling her toward the narrow hallway that led to the back door. Anna remained behind as if rooted to the spot, her wide eyes fixed on the door like an anchoring presence. I can help, she urged, her voice filled with a calm that didn't match the tempest swirling within us.no, Anna. Please, I shouted, heartbreaking as her loyalty became another thread in the web of danger entangling us. With every ounce of strength I had, I moved Lila forward, the urgency of the moment pushing me to the limits. Stay close. Hold my hand. The rear door wasn't far, but every step felt like a mile. Clara was focused, her gaze darting around like a cornered animal, and I could feel the pendulum of time swing infinitely within that moment. Then, just as we reached the door, another crashing sound sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through my veins. My heart thundered in my chest as I felt Lila grip my hand too tightly, each squeeze a reminder of my duty to protect her. Suddenly, without warning, Anna yelled, "Behind you!" Fear erupted within me as instinct kicked in, and I pivoted, just in time to see the door burst open. A figure cloaked in darkness stepped inside, a menacing silhouette against the dim light spilling through. I couldn't think, couldn't breathe, only act. Run! I shouted as I pushed Clara and Lila ahead of me, running toward the back exit. But in our desperate flight, I caught a glimpse of Anna. She didn't retreat. She stood at the threshold, fearlessly facing what we all feared most. Anna. Go! I screamed, panic erupting within me, but she only shook her head, resolve etched in her features. And in that heartbeat before everything changed, as the silhouette lunged toward us, I understood there was something of profound bravery in her stillness, a spark of courage that ignited the dimness I had felt in my bones. Yet that bravery, that determination, hung perilously on the edge of the storm closing in on us. Without thinking, I reached out, as though to shield her from the chaos unraveling, but just as I did, chaos erupted. It wasn't just danger that lay before me, it was a dawning horror in the realization that our fight for safety would not just be against him, but also against an unknown world that twisted the very fabric of our existences, pulling us under toward a darkness none of us were prepared to face. My heart raced as fear surged within me, propelling me forward with Clara and Lila in my wake. I caught another glimpse of Anna's solitary figure rooted to the floor, her resolve like a beacon amidst the chaos. I wanted to shout at her, to tell her she was foolish for standing against the storm, but my voice faltered in the clutches of panic. The silhouette lunged, and time fractured around us. I pushed Clara and Lila out through the back door, fumbling with the handle, praying it would yield to our desperate grasp. The door creaked open, revealing the darkness of the night beyond. The air was thick with uncertainty, but instinct urged us to flee. Go! Run! I called, my breath coming out in harsh gasps as I looked back one last time, but Anna was still there, her presence a stark contrast to the fear that enveloped me. I strained to understand why she hadn't moved, what unseen strength held her there in that moment of terror. She simply stood firm, eyes locked on the figure advancing toward her as though she possessed knowledge I did not. My heart clenched with a sorrowful wish to shield her from the hammering reality that had crashed into our Lavisa reality that now thrust her into peril. Anna. Clara's voice was like an urgent plea, a tremble of fear lacing her tone. My hand tightened around the doorknob, urging the three of us back outside where the night felt somehow less oppressive than the weight of our circumstances. Suddenly, the figure lunged, but just before I could react, Anna spoke, her voice ringing out like a fragile thread of hope woven through the turmoil. You don't have to do this. She called, the innocence in her tone somehow cutting through the din of despair. I know why you're here. Heavy silence hung in the air, the atmosphere pulsing with tension between them. It was a moment suspended in time, filling my lungs with dread. "What are you talking about, Anna?" I dashed toward her, but Clara's voice and the terrified grip of Lila on my hand pulled me back. The intruder halted, momentarily caught off guard, as uncertainty flickered across their shadowy features. "You think you can save them?" Their voice was grating, layered with both disbelief and malice. "That I know you," Anna continued, her small voice steady yet tremulous. "You came to find Clara, but you don't have to hurt anyone. Just let us go, please." Each word from Anna was a spark of unexpected courage, illuminating the crevice of darkness that threatened to consume us. I felt Clara's grip on my arm tighten, her eyes wide with an unspoken fear for the child who stood defiantly amid raw terror. In the stillness, I caught the figure's breath, a hesitation that wrapped around us like a fragile shield. For a brief heartbeat, I thought perhaps Anna was onto something, her childlike plea reaching a distant part of the intruder's soul. Yet, doubts clawed at my mind as I saw the intensity in those shadowed eyes, a feral glimmer igniting just beneath the surface. "Get away from her!" I shouted, forcing every ounce of authority into my voice. I was not ready to witness Anna face this alone. I darted forward, intent on stepping between her and the danger that loomed, but Clara tugged at my sleeve, her breath hitching in a way that sent a fresh wave of panic crashing through me. "Jared, wait," she whispered urgently, fear and understanding entangled in her gaze. "Please, let her speak." I hesitated, torn between protecting Anna and trusting Clara's instincts. The seconds dragged on, suffocating and taut with untold possibilities. I could feel time tightening like a noose around my choices, but something in Clara's eyes told me this was a fragile moment of negotiation, an opportunity we either had to seize or condemn ourselves to eternal darkness. "Why should I?" The figure responded coolly, the bravado slipping slightly. "She's just a child, and you're just a monster," I shot back, my voice cracking with emotions I had scarcely begun to unravel. "A monster who doesn't know what he's walking into." The figure's eyes flared, and for a heartbeat, anger and insecurity battled within. But Anna stood steady, unyieldingly brave, and I realized that perhaps her innocence could touch something buried deep within. "Because if you hurt us, you'll never find what you really want," Anna murmured, the tremor of her voice vibrating with sincerity that belied her years. "There are better ways to be understood." For a moment, silence reigned as uncertainty slithered through the air. The heaviness of the night pressed down on us, shadows stretching ominously around the figure. I could see the shift, fleeting but palpable. Did the words of the child pierce the armor that shrouded his intentions? "Enough." He spat, frustration bubbling over before he advanced another step, the moment fracturing under the threat of violence. In a rush of instinct and protective fury, I surged forward, prepared to interject, but Clara grabbed my arm with a grip stronger than fear. Both our eyes fixed on Anna. And then, a heap of emotions hit me like a tidal wave. Clinging to her bravery felt as if I were clutching onto something sacred amidst this survival game. Then, the ground trembled beneath us, a sound rolling through the air that was not heavy but melodic, at once soothing yet deeply distressing. I felt it reverberate in my bones, and as I turned to look back at Anna and the figure, I saw something ripple across his face, a flicker of doubt that overtook the tension. A crack in the facade, but before I could decipher that breakthrough moment, a piercing shriek shattered the night like glass breaking. The sound emanated from the distance, a cry filled with pure terror and unmistakable urgency that turned my blood cold. A cry that could only belong to Lila. The shriek echoed in the night, a haunting melody that reverberated through the darkness, freezing time in a suffocating grasp. My heart dropped, an icy dread pooling in my stomach as Lila's terrified voice sliced into the scene like a blade. I tore my gaze from Anna, every instinct screaming to rush to her side. "Lila!" I shouted, panic surging through me, the weight of the moment pressing down like a heavy fog. I wrenched my arm from Clara's grip, propelled by something primal that demanded I protect my children at all costs. My legs moved before reason could catch up, each step a frantic bid to cover the distance between us, but before I could reach her, Anna's voice broke through the haze. "Don't leave us." It was a plea drenched in desperation, a tether that clawed at my heart. I turned back, torn between Lila's cries and the fragile moment unfolding. The figure, emboldened by the distraction, lunged at Anna. In a heartbeat, The world jolted. There was no time for thought, only instinct. I propelled myself forward, a rush of adrenaline fueling my movements. No! I shouted, every fiber of my being focused on shielding Anna from whatever darkness threatened to engulf her. Just as I reached the threshold where Anna stood, the figure hesitated once more, caught in the ricochet of emotions unleashed by the child's quiet bravery. It was as if Anna's illuminated innocence had cast a shadow over his darker instincts. Yet, that pause was mercurial, and it vanished the moment the sound of Lila's cries pierced through the night. That I can't hold it back. Lila's wail shattered the stillness, a frantic plea that pulled me like a drowning man to the shore. The fear in her voice jolted me into action, propelling me toward the source of her distress wherever that was in this dark sea of uncertainty. Stay with Anna. I shouted to Clara as I broke free, determined to leave a safe refuge behind. Don't let her get hurt. My voice wavered, but I hoped the urgency was louder than the chaos around us. That I raced toward the sound of Lila's cries, threading through shadows and debris, my heart pounding in time with her frantic pleas. Each step echoed in my mind, urging me onward. Somewhere she had to be, somewhere close. But as I rounded the corner of the building, I was met with the chilling sight of an empty yard, and still, the echoes of her fear resonated in my chest. Lila. I shouted into the darkness, desperation weaving into my tone. Where are you? Silence answered, a suffocating blanket that threatened to smother me. Then, through the stillness, a faint sound reached my ears, the soft rasp of a whisper, barely audible, yet palpable in its urgency. I strained to listen, heart racing as I fought against despair. Please help, Lila. I turned on my heel, retracing my steps, drawn closer to her voice as if it were a lifeline. My chest tightened with every word, every breath that echoed her plea. And then I saw her, crumpled against the far wall, shaking like a leaf caught in a tempest. That a spilled bucket of cleaning supplies lay around her, the contents pooling on the ground like a dark omen, but the sight of her fragile form brought a most profound relief. Oh, Lila. I dropped to my knees, the cool ground a stark contrast to the heat of terror that had surged through me only moments before. Daddy. I can't, I'm scared. Her words tumbled out, frantic and broken. I swept her into my arms, cradling her against my chest, feeling the tremors that shook her tiny frame. It's okay. I'm here. You're safe. As I held her, the muffled world around us melted into an indistinguishable haze. My heart raced, fear and love intertwining in a dance that left me breathless. But the moment was short-lived, as a crash echoed through the air, a sound too loud, too ominous to ignore. My blood ran cold, realizing that the tumult of the world around us was still very much alive. Lila, listen to me. You need to be quiet now, okay? I whispered urgently, gazing seriously into her wide eyes. Whatever happens, I won't leave you. There was a flicker of understanding amidst her fear, but as I attempted to gather her closer, the ground began to tremble ever so slightly, a rumble deep within the earth that left a knot of apprehension in my gut. It felt like the world was shifting, like the very foundation beneath my feet threatened to unravel. Then, Yarek's voice reached us, thunderous and unforgiving. Where are you hiding? It echoed like the drums of war, and my breath caught in my throat as dread twisted in my gut. Stay low, baby. Stay quiet. I urged, a new urgency flooding my veins as I quickly glanced around for an escape. The shadows felt alive now, crawling, creeping closer as I contemplated how to shield Lila from the impending storm. Yet what hope did I really have? I peered around, my eyes darting as the whispers of scribbled notes from Anna's still echoing soft bravery wove through the chaos. Would that courage be our guiding light, our shield against the darkness drawing nearer? Would Anna's innocent wisdom tilt the scales between life and despair? Through the oppressive weight of uncertainty, a flicker of resolve burned within me to create something better for Lila, a safe haven threaded with hope. Yet, just as that ember of determination ignited, I felt the tremble of an approaching shadow, the unmistakable energy of confrontation, and in that moment, the world hung suspended in an unpredictable balance, caught between the faint whispers of hope and the looming threat of despair. As the last echoes of Yarek's thunderous voice faded into the night, a suffocating silence enveloped us. Lila trembled in my arms, her small body a fragile vessel of fear. The ground beneath me felt increasingly unstable, both physically and emotionally, as if it mirrored the chaos that had engulfed our lives. "Please, Lila," I whispered, my words thick with emotion, "just stay quiet and hold on to me." I pressed my face into her hair, a protective barrier against the world that felt intent on tearing us apart. I could feel my heart thudding against my ribs, the rhythm a desperate plea for survival, for safety. In that moment, the shadows crept closer, dark tendrils of uncertainty threatening to close around us. Yarek's footsteps pounded heavily in the distance, each one resonating like a death knell, striking an unyielding fear deeper into my heart. He didn't just want to find us, it felt as if he wanted to destroy everything we cherished. Suddenly, a soft glimmer caught my eye, a reflection from the shattered glass nearby. It shimmered faintly, a reminder of clarity amidst my turmoil. Turning instinctively, I saw the remnants of a broken picture frame, the scattered shards like memories splintered and shattered. My breath hitched in my throat. This was a reminder. There once was joy, laughter underneath this overwhelming darkness. There were moments worth fighting for. "Lila," I murmured, pulling back slightly to look into her wide, frightened eyes. "Remember that time we built a fort out of blankets? Just us against the world." I felt the faintest flicker of recognition in her gaze, a dim light pushing through the murkiness of fear. "You were the brave knight protecting your castle. You can do it again." Her little lips quivered, recalling that carefree moment where she felt empowered, where she wasn't just my mute child but a warrior in her own right. "Daddy the knight," she whispered, her voice wavering like a candle in the wind. It wasn't loud, but it was there, and it filled my heart with something I thought I had lost hope. "Yes. The knight." I encouraged, my nerves quaking but my spirit lifting, feeling the warmth of connection reignite. "And knights find a way to protect their castles. We need to be brave, just like that day. Can you do that for me?" With a slow nod, a flicker of courage began to blossom in her eyes, pushing through the chains of fear. But as if the universe sought to stomp out our small flame of determination, a loud crash reverberated nearby, its echo ripping through the night like thunder. Yarek was closer now, and my heart plummeted. "Stay low," I urged again, pressing her close to me, my instincts screaming to shield her from whatever horror might come next. I risked a glance toward the source of the crash, fear working its tendrils through my mind like poison. In that instant, a soft voice broke through the tension, surprisingly calm and serene amidst the chaos. "I won't let him hurt you." It was Anna. She had stood just beyond the shadows, somehow managing to remain unseen. A gossamer thread of hope blossomed in my chest as her figure materialized from the darkness, an ethereal silhouette against the backdrop of fear. "Anna," I exclaimed, incredulity washing over me. "Get back. You shouldn't be here." The urge to shield her swelled within me, but the shattered pieces of what we once held dear were too heavy to dismiss. "No," she said firmly, taking a step toward us, "he's afraid of me." A strange combination of innocence and strength emanated from her words, filling the air with a strange tension. "I saw him, Daddy. I know what will keep him away." "Keep who away?" I questioned, my brows knitting together in confusion. How could she know? The trouble we were in felt insurmountable, a darkness far greater than her innocent understanding. Suddenly, the ground tremored again, stronger this time, as if the very earth was eager to split apart and consume us whole. The shadows writhed and morphed, and in that twisting darkness, a figure emerged. Yarek, silhouetted against the sparse light, his features contorted with anger and desperation. "No!" I shouted, clutching Lila tighter. "Stay back." But my voice faltered, a fading whisper in the face of his growing rage. Anna stepped before me. "You can't hurt them," she declared, her voice rising in defiance as if she were casting a spell against the encroaching horror. The courage in her tone was bewildering, surprising even, as it flooded the gap where despair threatened to reign. For a heartbeat, the tension held, a taut string stretched to its limit, and I felt the world tilt beneath my feet. But before anything could unfold, Yarek's voice sliced through reason, a snarl woven into the fabric of the night. "You think you can stop me?" In that moment, uncertainty loomed large, swallowing any sense of control as Yarek advanced. Time fractured, space stretching between us, and I could only hold my children close, the protective instinct surging as the darkness began to close in, the silence of the night shattered by despair. But as the shadows converged and the chaos swirled, Anna's voice rang out like a bell, a sudden realization igniting something within me. "Raise your sword!" she shouted, and with those unexpected words, my soul ignited. I saw not just my daughters Lila, the brave knight, and Anna, the fierce protector, but a formidable force against the night. And just as Yarrick lunged forward, the final truth hit me like a wavy, a horrifying revelation that felt like a splinter driven deep into my heart. What if his fury was a reflection of something I had yet to face? What if our battle was not just against him, but against the shadows buried deep within our own fears? As his figure surged forward, darkness enveloping, our collective spirits hung in the balance, caught in the treacherous grip of desperation, and the knowledge that somehow, this fight was just beginning, and the outcome was far from certain. The stillness was shattered as the air crackled with tension. I could feel the pulse of fear throbbing through the dark, mingling with the desperate noises of the night. Yarrick was close now. Lila clung to me, her tiny frame trembling against my chest, and I could feel the weight of my own heart crashing painfully against my ribs. I locked eyes with Anna, her fearless stance igniting an insatiable fire in my gut. "Raise your sword," she had said, and those words struck true. Because as chaos swirled around us, I realized the sword wasn't a weapon of conflict, it was a symbol of our resilience, forged in the fires of love and determination. Whatever darkness Yarrick brought, we had something far greater ignited within us, a light that could not be extinguished. "Stay close, Lila," I whispered, my voice low and steady. I felt the warmth of her small hand wrap around my finger as if it could tether us both to safety. In that moment, a flicker of hope ignited in my heart, a realization that even amid shadows, our connection could shine. "Listen to me," I urged, feeling a strange calm wash over me like a wave of clarity amidst the storm. "We are stronger together, can't hurt us if we stand united." Nestled between Anna and Lila, my heart ached for what we had lost and what we might lose, yet a fierce determination raced through my veins. I was ready to stand for my daughters, for the love that had carried us through the darkest of times, even if that meant facing my own demons. Yarrick surged forward, rage radiating from him like venom. "You think you found safety here, hiding behind your children?" His voice was a cold blade, each word cutting deeper into the core of my resolve. "Stop." Anna's voice rang out, commanding and fierce. "You don't understand what you're trying to destroy." Her innocence cut through the suffocating darkness, challenging his very being. I felt the surge of courage flow through me, electrifying the air, igniting a collective strength between us. "Anna." I turned my gaze, barely above a whisper. "What do you know about him? How can we stop this? I can see the fear that drives him," Anna spoke, her voice strong amid the rising tension. "He thinks he needs to wipe something out, but he only needs to remember who he was. The power lies in showing him that he doesn't have to be a monster." Lila's eyes glimmered with a mixture of fear and fierce resolve. "You can be good," she chimed softly. "Like in the stories." Each word was like a soothing balm, an echo of innocence breaking against the razor edge of cruelty. The connection we shared felt electric, and I could sense the shifting momentum beginning to form. Yarrick faltered, taken aback, his fierce exterior shaking like a mirage in the face of an unforeseen tide. "You think your words can change me?" he growled, frustration coursing through the tremors of his voice. But in that moment, I noticed a flicker of something in his eyes, a deep-seated sorrow, perhaps. "We see you," I responded, my own fear morphing into something brave, a resolve that felt solid against the chaos. "We see you, not as the shadow you wish to be, but as a person. No one is irredeemable." My words rang true in the stillness, slicing through the suffocating atmosphere. Clenching his fists, Yarrick's countenance twisted into a mask of conflict, a tempest brewing within. "You know nothing," he retorted, though the defiance in his eyes faltered. But then something else shifted. The shadows in the space around Yarrick seemed to retreat, as if my words had pulled the curtains aside on a forgotten truth. "You've lost your way," I continued, voice steady. "But we can help you find it again." The power of those words struck like a beacon, transforming despair into fragile hope. Help me? Why would you help someone who only brings pain? His voice faltered, and I felt the tether of connection solidify between Ushi's anguish palpable, a mirror of the pain we had endured, because we all deserve redemption, Lila said, her voice timid yet layered with strength. You can be good too. Everyone can. A soothing breeze peppered her voice, sending ripples of assurance through that heavy night. The air changed, the atmosphere thick with something Newa's surprising tenderness that lay just beneath the surface of rage. Jarek's fierce eyes met Lila's, and in the infinite silence, we held our breath, searching for that single thread the humanity cradled so deep beneath his anger. With every heartbeat, the air around us infused with possibility. You can choose, I pressed, heart racing, feeling the weight of history burdening him. You can walk away from the darkness. You can find the light. The tremor of uncertainty shook Yarek. A flicker of hesitation crossed his face, shadows of regret mingling with the fury that once consumed him. You think it's that easy? He spat, though the venom sounded faded, almost defeated. No, I replied, determination igniting within me. We know it isn't, but it starts with a choice for love instead of despair. I took a step closer, willing to reach him, to give him a chance that I may have long since lost. You don't have to be alone, Yarek. We're here. The silence draped over us like a fragile veil, the power of truth and compassion weaving its way through, binding us in an unexpected fragility. Slowly, Yarek's shoulders shifted, a gradual unwinding. As the rage slowly leached away, a soul underneath the mask of rage began to reveal itself, but then another voice broke through the uncertainty, a voice wrapped in darkness, laden with malice, an unexpected return from the shadows. Oh, how naive! It spoke with a chilling sneer, yet we were taught with unyielding bravery, hearts throbbing as a counterpoint to the encroaching threat. Suddenly, the ground beneath our feet shifted, the gravity weighing heavier still as Anna called out. We can break the chains of fear. Together. In a stunning display of power, a voice echoed from behind us. Anna's words emerged like a ripple across still water. It was a challenge to the shadows that lurked, demanding us to unite against the dread but uncertain of the fight that lay ahead of us. As the figure from the depths of despair moved closer, I felt the protective instinct coiling like a snake around my heart. Stand firm. I shouted, urging Lila and Anna to bridge their insecurities. Stronger together. And in that moment, every shred of fear faded away, illumination infused into every word that resonated in the stillness. We were a united force, enveloped by love unraveled against a darkness that seemed insurmountable. Yarek faltered once more, struck by the illumination we had woven among ourselves. You think love can conquer all? He asked, though the fire in his voice flickered, a mere shadow of its former self. Yes. I asserted, standing tall. And just as we face our own shadows together, we can face yours. It begins with you. In that heartbeat, I felt the power of vulnerability dawning, relentless and beautiful. As curiosity bubbled beneath Yarek's hardened exterior, I dared to step closer. No matter how heavy the burden, you have a choice: renew your humanity or be consumed. I locked eyes with him, willing to see beneath the masks we had all worn, the calluses of despair falling away, one after another, washed clean by the strength of our unity. And then it happened. The shadows that had loomed and threatened clarity next transformed, twisting and tumbling back to reveal a clarity I never thought possible. Yarek stood suspended in that moment, a fragile soul lost yet offering a glimpse of light as the veil of anger slipped, revealing just a flicker of vulnerability beneath that eye. He whispered, his voice wavering, I don't know if I remember what that feels like. It's been so long. In that moment, the enormity of his pain clawed at my heart, igniting a profound empathy that intertwined with our shared humanity. It starts right here, Lila said, her voice soft and steadfast, as she reached out, her touch laced with innocence, offering him the chance to begin anew. Together, we can find it again. A stillness wrapped around us, the kind that may precede the dawn after an endless night, an acknowledgement that we indeed weren't just faced with choosing between right and wrong, we were draped in the very fabric of what makes us human. Will you try? My voice broke through the silence, a plea interwoven with hope as I beckoned the remnants of light in Yarek's shadow. Will you join us and find your way back? And like a breath of fresh air cutting through the storm, the atmosphere shifted. For the first time, I could sense Yarek's walls crumbling, revealing a fragment of a soul steeped in sorrow yet yearning for redemption. As if also sensing a shift, Lila stepped forward slightly, joining Anna, both of them enveloped in bravery and compassion. In that moment, Yarek faltered, and for the briefest of moments, I could see the dawning realization manifest across his features, a flicker of hope igniting within the dark, a possibility to emerge from the depths of despair that had long overshadowed his existence. Then, a powerful wind surged through the night, roaring its approval, rousing the spirits around us. Yes. You are not alone. Anna urged, her fragile voice laced with conviction. Love leads the way. And just like that, everything shifted. The shadows that had once hung like a pall took a breath of fresh air, the night trembled as it peeled away layers of misunderstanding. It was transformational power of forgiveness, the raw vulnerability that had been hidden beneath, and the yearning for reconnection unveiled before our eyes. As I watched Yarek flinch, something awakened within him, a recognition pulsing through the air, blooming hope as he took a tentative step forward, his gaze shifting to Lila, and then to each of us, a silent question lingering in the air, and in the very next moment, the darkness began to fade. The pressing threats dissolved under the weight of newfound camaraderie, a promise that maybe, just maybe, redemption lay not in shadows, but in the light we chose to embrace. As our hearts beat together, united, alive, it became clear that even amid the darkest nights, glimmers of hope could cut through silence, transforming despair into something beautiful. And in that moment, as the shadows peeled away, I understood what we had forged amidst all the trials we faced: love. Together, I whispered, the echoes of my own heart resonating within me, threading between us like a fragile prayer. Because the story had changed from fighting against darkness to weaving a tapestry of light in the presence of love, and as my eyes held Yarek's, I saw something incredible glimmer back. We are not just cleaning up the mess, we've created a force beyond ourselves. As hope breathed new life around us, the shadows of yesterday dissipated like smoke in the wind, and finally, I felt the weight of despair ease. The unconditional love forged between us swaddled every fragment of our brokenness, embracing the beauty of resilience, the promise of brighter tomorrows echoing through the night, wrapping us in newfound warmth. Let's begin again, together. With those final words, we shattered the silence of our fears, paving the way for healing, holding tightly to the truth that we would never walk alone again. And that realization became the heartbeat of our new journey, one of love, one of courage, rising from the ashes of fear and conflict, accompanied by the sweet whispers of hope that had finally found a voice.